So now that we've seen a bunch of different ways to animate in Cinema 4D, it's time to take a look at dynamic simulations, which basically means rather than animating objects by hand, we can give our objects physical properties like weight, bounce, or friction, and let the built-in simulation engine calculate the animation for us using real-world physics. And this is a super useful tool and will save you loads of time, especially when you want to create complex and realistic looking animations. So let's dive into a few examples, starting with this ball animation from our original scene. So I've got the ball and cabinet ready to go. And if I play this, you can see I've already animated the door opening with a couple of keyframes and some easing. So basically, I want to fill this cabinet up with a bunch of balls, and when it opens, I want them all to spill out onto the floor and roll away. So the first step is going to be cloning the balls into a grid and placing them inside here. So we'll grab the ball and put it inside a cloner, and we can bring the balls in a bit closer to each other with the controls here. Then in the Object tab, I'll add some more clones along the y-axis, which is still spaced a bit far apart. So let's drop these down to about 5 centimeters. To get our grid of balls, so let's drag them into here. And I might just go back to the start and switch to my top view and just position these inside. And it looks like we've got more space for clones in here, so we can add some to the x-axis. Nope, must be the z-axis. So a few more to fill the space, and that should probably work. So let's double check the positioning over in the perspective view. And that might be easier to do if we make the cabinet see-through. So I'll grab both parts of that and set them to X-ray mode, which might make things a bit easier to see. So I'll grab the cloner again, shift it down, and make it 5 deep, like so. Then I'll just double check it again from the top and from the side, and I'll just move it up a tad so it's not touching any part of the cabinet, which is pretty important for our simulations. So now we can make these guys dynamic. So with our cloner, let's go to Tags, Simulation Tags, and give them a Rigid Body Dynamics tag. And by default, if we hit play, they'll just drop straight down through everything because they're now being affected by gravity physics. So we need to make them collide or interact with the objects in our scene instead of passing through them. So let's grab both parts of the cabinet and the 2 floor objects and go to Tags, Simulation Tags, and we can give them a collider tag. And now let's see what happens. And we're most of the way there already. Let's rewind this. So the balls aren't all orientated in exactly the same direction. Let's grab the cloner and give that a random effector. Then to parameter, get rid of position, and just randomize the rotation values, just so they're placed in a less perfect, more natural way before they fall down and roll out. So again, they're falling down and rolling out. But what I actually want to do is let them fall down and settle first before the door opens and they all spill out. So let me just go back here, and I might switch to my wider camera view. If I grab the cabinet door, I'm just going to grab these keyframes that open the door by holding Shift and dragging them along a bit. So now the doors stay closed when we play this, giving the balls a chance to settle. Then in the rigid body tag on the cloner, right at the bottom here, we can set the initial state. So the position the balls are currently in will be where the simulation starts. So let's see that. And now if we play this from the start, they simulate from that position. So then we can put our door keyframes back again. And if we play, it opens up and they spill out without first falling down. But now if you look closely, some of the balls are shaking a bit, which is probably because our simulation quality settings are quite low by default. So if I hit Ctrl D to bring up the scene settings, if we go to the simulation tab here, to get a better quality and more accurate simulation, we can increase the sub-steps, which is basically how many physics calculations Cinema 4D performs per frame. Higher values improve stability and accuracy, but the higher you go, the slower it will be to calculate. So let's just try 40 to see if that helps. And I often also increase the collision passes to make the collisions between the objects more accurate as well. So if we play that now, we'll get a little pop at the beginning there, but the rest of the sim should be nice and smooth. And I think the popping is just because we set the initial state with the old simulation settings, so the collisions were off. So I'll just let that settle again, and I'll go and update the initial state again. And try that. But the issue now is that they're just falling out and staying put. But I want them to sort of roll off to the side and be out of view so I can loop the whole animation later on. So one way we can do that is by adding a wind force that blows the balls away. So let's rewind and we'll go to the Simulate menu where we can find all the dynamics forces, and we'll choose wind at the bottom here. And if I switch to the rotate tool, I can rotate the wind force and have it blow in any direction we want. And if we solo that, you can see there's an arrow showing you exactly the direction the wind is going to blow in. So let's point it this way, and let's see what that gives us. So not a whole lot, because I think the wind is probably a bit too weak. So I'll grab that, and let's crank the wind speed way up to about 500 and see what that does. All right. So that's pretty much how I created this. However, if I just switch views here, if we play that again, you might see the balls look like they're just sliding across the floor rather than rolling. So to fix that, we could grab our collision tags here. And this friction value can basically be used to make collision surfaces less slippery. So if I increase these all to 10, and I'll do the same to the rigid body tag on the balls as well. Under the collision tab, there's friction here as well. So I'll also make that 10. And try again. And with more friction, they're no longer sliding, but rolling nicely across the floor. So back to our camera view here. If you wanted them to move a bit faster, you could always just go back and increase the wind speed further. So maybe 800 and try that. So then when you're happy with your simulated animation, you can go and grab the dynamics tag again, and we can now cache the simulation. So under the cache tab, let's cache object. And that's going to play through the whole simulation and bake it to disk. And now that that's finished caching, the tag changed, indicating that it's now cached. And we can scroll through the animation nice and fast now, because it's reading the data from the disk instead of calculating the simulation. So that's your first dynamic simulation done. I recommend doing your simulations in separate scenes with just the elements you need, rather than trying to do it in your main scene. This should keep things simulating nice and fast and help to avoid crashes as well. And I usually just export my final simulations out as Alembic files, which you can do here. Just make sure that you've got the correct timeline length that matches your scene. Then you can grab the Alembic object that it creates and go and paste it into your main scene. And now you've got a nice, lightweight, fast, and self-contained animation you can integrate into your main project. And you can easily move it wherever it needs to be. And you can also come inside here and retime baked Alembic animation as well, which is pretty cool. And you can always come back to your simulation project, tweak things in here, and then just re-export again if you need to. So that is the basic workflow, but let's try another simulation. This time we'll see how to make this bubble animation. And we've already seen how to create the unrolling panel in a previous lesson, but I've also placed a sphere inside, which I'm going to inflate and expand outward to then float away. And if we take a look at that sphere, I've given it quite a few segments so it can deform easier, and also change the mode to hexahedron, so the polygons are a bit more evenly spaced, which is usually better for simulations. So with that set up, let's make this dynamic. So I'll grab the sphere, And we'll go to tags, simulation tags, and this time we're going to give it a cloth dynamics tag instead, which allows us to simulate soft objects that can bend and deform like cloth or like a bubble. So if we were to play this, it just drops straight down through our objects again due to gravity. So first we need to make the shelves collider objects. So I'll grab the rolling part and the shelves, and I'll go to tags, simulation tags, and make them colliders. Then I also want to be able to see through this box so we can see what that sphere is up to inside. So with those selected, under the basic tab, let's set it to X-ray mode. And now we can keep an eye on that bubble before it escapes. So let's play that. And now it just falls and squishes up as if it were made of cloth. But the idea is to inflate it and push it out of here. So I'll need to tweak the settings in our cloth tag. Let's start over in the balloon tab. Let's enable this. And then I want to give it some pressure. So I'm going to increase this quite a bit. And this is saying over the course of 30 frames, give it this much pressure. So let's see what that looks like. Now it drops, then starts to inflate. Cool. But I don't want it to fall down and be affected by gravity. I want it to be light and floaty. So I'll hit Ctrl D to bring up the simulation settings again. And under the scene tab, let's set the gravity to 0 so it has no effect on the bubble. And try that. Cool. So we're getting close, but now the cloth isn't soft enough to deform properly. So let's go back to the cloth tag. And under surface, let's make it more bendy and more stretchy. And the thickness is the collision distance, or how far from the object the collision surface is. So for accuracy, I usually lower this value a bit so there's no gaps between objects. And I think the rest looks fine, so let's try that. So it expands and pops out. So we're making progress, but it's getting a bit chewed up when it collides with the roll. So at this point, I think we need to increase the quality of the simulation, like we did in the last example. So let's hit Ctrl D again. And this time, under simulation, let's set the substeps to 50. And try that. A bit better. Maybe we can try increasing the iterations as well. And the smoothing iterations, which also make the simulation more accurate and less jittery. And while we're here, let's increase the collision values as well. Let's try that. And it's looking a lot more stable now. And it's nice and blobby as well. So we're nearly there. But I don't want it to float off this way. I want it to go straight up. So let's go to our forces again. And we'll use another wind force. And if I zoom out a tad here, you can see the wind is facing backward. So all we need to do is rotate it this way, 90 degrees. And try that. So it opens, the bubble comes out, but I think we might need to give the wind some more power again. So we'll grab that and crank this up to 200. And try that. All right. And we're done with this simulation. So don't forget to cache or bake it out as Alembic. So let's move on to one last example. This time we'll recreate the printer animation. So I've just got a very basic printer model here, which I've actually made from a Boolean, which we looked at back in the modeling section. But I've just cut shapes out of a very simple cube. Then if I zoom out a tad, I've just got a stretched out plane for the printer paper, which is going to come through and pile up over here. And the plane, which I've subdivided quite a lot, rather than animating it directly, I've put it inside a null, and I've keyframed the position on that instead, along the Z axis, which gives us this. So it's just dragging the plane through, so nothing fancy. And I now want to make this dynamic so it can deform and pile up over here. So let's grab our plane And we can come up here to the simulation tags again and find the cloth tag. But it's actually quicker and easier to just hit Shift-C and type cloth. And obviously playing this straight off the bat will cause it to drop straight down through everything with gravity again. So we need to make our colliders. And it only needs to collide with the cylinder on the floor and the tray, because it won't make it all the way out here because it'll be piling up. So I'll grab the cube here, which is the tray, and also the floor cylinder. And Shift-C again to add collider tags. And we'll play that. And it drops down and collides with those objects, but it's no longer being pulled through the printer. So we need to make it try and follow the null animation, but still stay dynamic. So I'll rewind. If we go and take a look at the cloth tag, under the mix animation setting here, we can enable this. And with this set to 100% influence, it's now going to conform to the original animation fully. So if we play this, we get the original animation again without any dynamics or gravity affecting it. It's 100% sticking to the null again, which isn't quite what we want. Instead, we want it to follow the original animation perfectly until it gets to the printer tray. Then we want the simulation to take over and affect the paper, so it can freely pile up on this side. So we need to create a mask to dictate the point at which it becomes dynamic. So with our plane, we need a way to dynamically select vertices to create our mask. And we can do that by adding a vertex map, which turns the whole object red, which is the off state of our mask. And we can then use a field to mask in an on state. So I'll use a linear field for this, which if we zoom out a tad, is pointed in this direction by default, but we need to change that. But first, let's pull our new field out of our animated null hierarchy because I don't want that to be moving. And I want it oriented along the Z axis. So if I grab that and go to the field tab, I think -Z is the direction we want. And I'll just reduce the fall off length, which we can also do with the handles here. And I'll make this nice and sharp actually. Let's try 2 centimeters. And now we have a nice sharp mask creating an on and off state for our mix animation that we can position anywhere we want. So anything that's red will make follow the original animation. Then the yellow part of the plane will become dynamic, where the simulation takes over, which will hopefully make a bit more sense shortly. But let's just get this into position. I'll switch to the top view and just put the center of the field right at the front of the printer. But now we need to tell our cloth tag to use this field. So I'll grab that, and back in the mix animation, we can add a map here. So let's drag the vertex map that's using our field into this slot. And we'll see what that gives us. Exactly the effect we're after. Although I don't really like how much it's bunching up here, so we might need to tweak some of the cloth settings as well. So let me just hide the linear field now so that's not so distracting. Then in the cloth tag, under the surface tab, I think to stop it bunching up like that, we can probably just drop the bendiness, maybe down to 1. And I'll also reduce the collision thickness, so there won't be gaps in the collisions. So I might just make that 0.5 and try that. All right, almost there. But it's now freaking out a bit and going through the cylinder. So we might need to increase the quality of the simulation again, like we've done with all the previous examples. So let's hit Ctrl-D to go back to our simulation settings. And I'm going to increase the substeps again, nice and high. And also add some iterations and smoothing. And pretty much the same as we did before, I'll also increase the collision values as well. And let's see what that gives us. And the simulation is a bit slower, but it should also be more accurate. And I think that's looking pretty good. So now that I'm happy with my sim, we can grab the cloth tag and we can now cache the object. And now we can scroll through this or play it back in real time. And we can export it to our main scene now that it's done. And if you're wondering how to hide the part at the back and stop it from being visible in the render, I actually just did that inside the material by using that same vertex map we set up before. So if anyone's interested in that setup, just let me know down below and I'll see if I can add a tutorial. Otherwise, you can see exactly how I did it in the project file. But that is a few ways you can animate with Dynamics in Cinema 4D. So let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or if there's anything else you'd like me to cover. And don't forget you can find the full free course as well as some more advanced content and resources at cgshortcuts.com/jumpstart.